reading and creating box plots. And sometimes these are called box and whiskers plots, but here is a typical box plot. And so it'll look like you basically have this, this box. It's usually somewhere in the middle of this kind of a graph or this kind of data plot. And then these extensions are what I'm talking about. You see this box, and sometimes it's called whiskers. They call these lines that come out kind of whiskers. So either a box plot or a box and whiskers plot. And first thing we want to know is, what do all these lines on the box plot represent? You need to know how to read a box and whiskers plot. So here it is. And even took the liberty of throwing some numbers in there for you because that's going to make it a lot easier. But you're going to want to make sure you have these things written down here in your notes. But this is what these different lines represent. First off, I guess kind of number one over here, this first line, this kind of left line that comes out, doesn't matter how long it is, wherever it stops right there is going to be the lowest value on your box plot or your box and whisker value, plot. Excuse me. So if we kind of saw right where that landed right over there, we could say that's about that could be about at about maybe 7 or so. So the lowest value in our data on this line, according to where it is probably 7, maybe 7.5, but that would be the lowest value that we have. The next spot up is this line right here, this first line in the box. That shows you the lower quartile. And box plots are separated into quartiles. We'll talk about that in a second. But that shows you where the lower quartile is, the kind of the first quarter of your data is. And so where does that line hit on the number line? About right there. We could say 21, 22, 23, maybe 22, 22 and a half. I'll just put 22. But that's where my lower quartile of the data is. This line is very important inside the box. Wherever this line is in the box, and it could be anywhere. It could be here, could be there. You're only going to have one of them. But this line is the median, and we know this. We know this is the middle number in your data. So wherever this line is in this case, 25, 26 probably, 27 around there, so maybe 26 and a half, 27. But that's where the middle of our data is. I'm going to go ahead and just put 26, maybe 27 if we got in a little bit closer. But that would be where the middle of our data is. I'll probably change that to 27. Just makes me feel better to have that. So the median would be 27. All right. 3 more of these. The line that ends our box, that is kind of on the opposite of that line right there, is going to be the upper quartile. So it shows where like your third quarter kind of your data ends. So it would kind of end right there. Not right in the middle of 35 and 40, but we could say maybe that's at about what do we think, 38 or so. That's kind of where the upper quartile ends. And then finally, this last extension right here, doesn't matter how long it is, but wherever it ends is where our data ends. Our data ends at 45. So the beginning number of our data was 7, the ending was 45, and then we had these values in between, okay? Finally, I kind of covered it up, but the width of the box shows the interquartile range, and you can have that written down. We'll talk about interquartile range in a little bit. But this is how you read a box plot. And if you get a question, you should be able to basically pull numbers off of a box plot based on looking at where these lines are and how this corresponds. So if we go back to our typical box plot, I took away all the definitions, but you can actually, a box plot's actually used most often to really show a clear example of the median and then the range. They'll call it the spread, but to show what the range is of data. That's when you see box plots used. You might not see them, they're not super common, but when you do, they're usually comparing ranges, like how much data is spread out. Okay, so like if we looked at this one right here, we could actually find the median. We know how to do that. The median is this line right here in the box. So if we had to answer that question, it looks like the median, if I take it away, it's not right on 30. Let's say the median is probably 31 here, okay? So if we got a question, what is the median of this box? Probably about 31. How about the range? Okay, well, we need the range is the difference between the biggest and the smallest number. So let's locate our smallest number. We know it's where this begins, right here. And let's say 10. Why don't we say 11? Let's say our smallest number is 11. Let's say that our largest number is where this thing ends, right there. It looks to be right on 50. I'm going to go ahead and go with that. Let's say our largest was 50. So the range is going to be 50 minus 11, and that should get us 39. So the range should equal 39. So we know what our median is, we know what our range is. We can't find the mean or the mode really from a box plot, but we can find the median and the range. It does give us a real good look at what the median and the range are when we have a box plot. So these are kind of the basics for reading a box plot. IQR, or interquartile range, we talked about it earlier. It sounds really complicated to say interquartile range, and a lot of times you'll hear IQR, but you'll see questions that say, find the IQR, the interquartile range, in this box plot. And it's really not that complicated. The IQR is like the range, but it's just the range inside of this box right here. So I went ahead and filled these numbers in. The regular range would be like this number minus this number, which we know equal 39. Well, the interquartile range, I forgot I have a definition for you, so there it is. The interquartile range is just the difference between these two values right over here. So you could probably work that out ahead of me. The difference, the smallest value is 22. Switch to a color here. The largest value is 45. So basically, if we do 45 minus 22, I'll get 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. 4 minus 2 is 2. And the interquartile range is 23 here. Interquartile inside of the box range is basically what interquartile range stands for.